Hello and welcome to a special bonus episode of Sinisterhood, a conversation with journalist Syran Warner.
Syran has been instrumental in all of the work he's done on Profundity Yours, a bunch of other cults too, but we're going to be talking with him today specifically about Profundity Yours. And if you listen to our episode that came out yesterday and last week too, you'll understand the severity of what is going on in East Texas right now. And we're trying to get as many eyes and ears on this as possible to help these folks out and the families of the folks that are at the ranch as well.
Yeah, and that's part of what Syran does too, is on the record interviews with people who have been part of it, who may have had family members or loved ones connected to it. So he has the kind of inside scoop and explains how he got involved and kind of what we all can do, which essentially is share this, make a lot of noise. But for now, enjoy a conversation with Syran Warner. So what's your background? For just kind of introduce yourself for us and kind of tell us about your background and how you got sort of roped into being the cult hunter, as you've been called.
I was a newspaper reporter. I wrote for an alt weekly from 2008, like right until the pandemic, when the paper folded because so much of the revenue came from all these places that weren't advertising because like nothing was open for forever.
Yeah.
And I had a cult story that it started off as like I wrote a piece for this magazine about a homicide that somebody from Minneapolis, where I live, was killed in Alaska. And while I was following that story, I eventually got to I was introduced to these people, or I guess I sort of stumbled into these people, this woman who was she was a source in the media. Like she worked at a radio station as like the news director. And I knew something was weird. People even like told me it was a cult. Like people told me to kind of stay away from this lady and whatever she was doing. But I was like, there's nothing. Like, what's the worst that could happen? And she like got in my head, and these people just found out like everything about me.
These were the Profundity Yours people?
No, this is pre-Profundity Yours?
No, this is pre-Profundity. This is a cult called The Body.
Oh, wow.
Like most of my TikTok videos are about them.
Yes.
Because I worked on that story for years. Like once I kind of put the pieces together and realized that like all this stuff I thought I knew was not real or had been misrepresented, I was just like, I'm going to tell this story and I'm going to do it independently. And then my original plan was to go 1 year and see what happened. And now it's been about 3 years since I've been doing this cult stuff.
Wow.
Nice.
And so you went from The Body, and then because you had kind of a following with that, were then people submitting tips of like, hey, this is happening in my hometown?
Yes. Yeah. I get a lot of tips. People message me either through DMs or, my email is on my website. These days, it's a lot of like TikTok and Instagram. People find me and send me. I mean, I hear stories all the time. And I'm actually like doing the initial sort of groundwork on what I believe will be like the next story too, while also doing this Profundity thing. And I'll probably also go back to I do like really long, I'm pokey, but I do these long sort of investigations and sort of, I only do stories about active cults that I'm actually going to do if I'm doing an investigation. So it evolves over time too. So something could happen with The Body, and I would jump right back into
Okay.
like if more people got arrested or something. Like
Keep on that. You got a lot of.
So that's wild. So by investigating The Body, you started to get sucked in.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I got sucked in while I was investigating. Like they got in my brain.
Yeah.
I believed some things that weren't real, and I didn't. And I just the whole time I assumed I was like too smart for anything bad to happen, and that just wasn't the case at all.
That's so fascinating because I am guilty of saying that all the time, that like I'm not the type of person that would get sucked into a cult. But I think if you're maybe it's so insidious you don't even realize
Mm-hmm.
it's happened until it's already happened.
That's how I accidentally followed Rajneesh Purim for about a year with their tarot card deck, because I got this like tarot deck as a gift and I thought it was great. And I'm following this like teachings and stuff. And one day, a year later, I Googled it and was like, that's literally the fucking cult from Wild Wild Country. And I had by then had told at least a half a dozen people, maybe a dozen, to be like, this will change your life. This book, this tarot deck is amazing. And I had to be like, hello, a few months ago, I may have recommended something. I hope you haven't. But you're right. It's just, it's insidious.
It came out.
Exactly. I was like, new information that was actually old information I was unaware of has come to light. But you're right. It's just like a little by little, you're like, how did I even end up?
How did you like break yourself from it once you recognize what was going on?
Honestly, I probably wouldn't have recognized the reason why I was able to put it together was that because I was working on this magazine story and this person was a source that was promising me all this information, like I was recording all our conversations.
Mm-hmm.
So like during the pandemic, I kind of went back to it and was like, I wonder, like, there's nothing to do. I'm going to listen to some of these tapes and see what's going on. And it was just clear to me that like that I missed something the first time.
Wow. Damn. Do you think
I would
this
say
source
though,
was
like,
trying to, well, go ahead.
I was just going to say, like, you were talking about like the Rajneesh cards or whatever and endorsing. I think that this like the whole like cult experience is something that, you know, not everybody has like it's sort of rare to get sucked into something like a Profundity Yours.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But we all have like experiences where we're manipulated or where we trust somebody. And then at some point you find out like, holy shit, this is like a totally different person than I thought it was.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
I mean, a lot of times like with like romantic relationships,
bosses,
this
familial relationships. I used to, I'm a lawyer, and one of my very last gig before I was doing this full time was working with older adults had been sucked into romance scams and had been, you know, abused by family members. And you think, oh, this guy was a professor and he believes that this, you know, that it's Chrissy Teigen is DMing him and needs $50,000. And it's like, and it little by little, you can really get groomed essentially.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, these are experiences that happen in minor ways, like in just about everybody's life. Like people are like, how does anybody ever fall for that? And it's like, you've been conned before. Like everybody
that's a good point.
Has been conned.
Even if it's selling you something that you don't need at the state fair, you know, they're like, oh, these knives will change your life.
You agree to it because you want to get out of there.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, pressure and stuff. So yeah, I've never really thought about that, but that's a good point. It's just a much grander scale.
Yeah.
But from your experience, like down there and everything, have you spoken with people that are in it? Have you kind of talked to people in the town, like what's going on down there?
I've definitely talked to the people in the town. There's people in the town that I communicate with on like a daily basis or every other day sort of basis.
Mm-hmm.
So and then there's, you know, those are like relationships that have really helped me a lot in discovering what the story is. I haven't communicated with anybody who's actually like in the cult, like a current member, but I talked to a lot of the people who left.
Wow.
Okay.
These like the survivors of the group, the people that they kind of united on Facebook, and people found each other. People kind of went to this. There's this one woman who was involved in it on like a sort of a leadership level, and a lot of people went to her when she left because they were shocked that like how did she leave?
Wow.
And she's done an amazing job, like just connecting people and telling stories. But that's where I honestly, like, I don't know if I would be all that interested in interviewing somebody who was like in the cult or interviewing Linda or anything, because I know kind of like what they're going to, I mean, I'm sure it would be really interesting to interview Linda. It'd be interesting, like, but I don't trust that information.
No,
I know, like after so much time with Linda, like I don't think like spending so much time with her digitally, like I can just see, you know, she doesn't tell the truth. She doesn't let people talk. she can't take criticism at all.
I mean, it's hallmarks of what you see when experts point out, what does a cult leader look like? And I was interested because, you know, you've kind of spent a lot of time with a lot of the footage, and this is a very new thing in this new and the new environment that we're all in, that these cults before, you know, back in the 70s and 80s would operate more on, there may be some videotaped evidence, but it's archival footage. Now a ton of information is available, and you have been working on a documentary. You spend a lot of time with this, all these images and audio. Do you see a progression? And if so, what do you think kind of she started with, and where do you think she's ended up? And given that, do you have any ideas of how far you think this can actually go?
Well, there's absolutely a progression. I mean, I think it starts, like, if you watch the really old videos of Linda from, I think the collection starts around, it's either the end of 2015 or 2016, where like there's videos that you can watch from back then. And she's got this gee golly, hello sunflower, like
Come on, honey.
Yeah. Southern charm kind of thing.
Oh yeah. Total Southern charm, which is funny because she's from Montana.
Yeah.
But she it's there is like darkness to it. It's definitely like she is using a bunch of cult tactics in these videos. She's like a rape apologist, and she's doing all kinds of stuff in those old videos that are like that's like, this is not like healthy for people to like be listening to this woman.
A lot of red flags.
But it's certainly it gets really dark like in 2018, or it starts to get dark in 2018, and then by like the pandemic, like 2021, that's where you have the Linda, the really dark Linda with the super deep voice,
the guttural,
who like doesn't make jokes anymore. I mean, occasionally she says she makes an attempt, but like the old Linda was like, there seemed to be a real, like a person in there. Whereas like when I see Linda now, I just see, you know, the facade is like the only thing that exists there anymore. And
she's has become the character that she's created and doesn't really have a personality of her own anymore.
Yeah, but I would say, yes, it got significantly darker over time.
Yeah. You're right. Because in some of the videos we were watching, she would like say, do you know how hard it is to drive a car? I'm used to driving a Starship. It was almost like stand up.
Yeah, she had jokes. She had
jokes, but it's interesting you said it, because it does seem like it's more directed. But I've noticed that they've done kind of a social media blackout, and they made a post saying, you know, someone has been stealing our videos. And I wondered if you're that someone possibly to whom they are referring.
I have a feeling they were talking about me.
I have an inkling. You. Yeah.
But,
have you heard anything like a cease and desist from attorneys or emails from anybody actively involved?
Yeah, I got a really amazing cease and desist, and I'm trying to think of what it was like a cease and desist, a trespassing order, and something else. But like, it was not anything that you could ever. I mean, I would bring it to court if they actually sued me, because it shows where their mind is at. Like,
it's like that. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, like, it wouldn't be valid in Texas for sure.
Well, that's what I was going to tell you. I'm not your lawyer, but I am a lawyer licensed in Texas. And if you would like me to look at those and laugh with you, I would love to.
Yes.
Because I'm sure it's ridiculous.
As a lawyer, you'll appreciate this. So this is like this. They're saying, you know, I'm doing all of these things. And the cease and desist opens with the dictionary.com definition of clout chaser.
Oh, shut up. It's like a sophomore in high school fucking paper. According to Webster's dictionary. Oh, goddamn. ChatGPT.
Oh my God. I have like 6 attorney group chats. I'm going to text immediately when we're done off of this call, because that's so good.
Oh man.
There's a Twitter feed too called Bad Legal Takes that I would encourage you to submit that to.
That's middle school English level writing.
Oh my God. Yeah. In fact, they probably should have just asked ChatGPT to write it, because it would not have added that in. Because you didn't say, could you write a 10th grade essay about you asked for a formal legal letter?
Damn. Well, no, I like that it's like clout chasing, which is like not even They had to include that because they had to Google what it is because they have no idea what it even is.
I was just like I thought you were gonna say they had the dictionary.com definition of like trespass, which was cringy enough. But you just told me that it was clout chasing. My soul has left my body. Oh my god!
And it's funny because like
even
this wasn't written by like a real somebody at least posing as a lawyer wrote this.
Yeah, I can find out. I mean, I'm sure you can too. You're a journalist, but I was like, I'm curious genuinely because everybody's got to make.
Do they have to sign it?
Oh yeah, I'm sure he signed it. I'm sure it's a letterhead. Everybody's got to make money somehow. Some people's clientele is whatever walks through the door, and I imagine that's
sometimes Linda walks through the door.
It's authentically Linda, though. You can tell in the letter that like Linda's like, or whatever the brain trust is like. Okay, we want to say this and we want to say this and we want to say he trespassed on our property, even though he hasn't been to Texas in 10 years. Like all this stuff that they're throwing in there, and there's all this. What's really baffling is in after the clout chasing stuff, they're like, these are the ethics of journalism, and you broke these rules. Like, you're gonna take me to court,
right?
Like
yeah.
using the F word or something.
Call my boss. Yeah. Oh, I don't have one. Oh, hang on.
Slap on the wrist.
Hello, it's me. Fuck off. Yeah, I'm my own boss. Yeah. Oh my god!
Report me to the journalism commission, whatever you think exists.
Yeah, whoever that is.
And God's blessed them for the naivete to think that we have some like ethical standard.
Send it to the human fund, and she's like, "Who?" And then you just like 123 Sesame Street. That's the address.
People,
and then that's where you can send all my legal paper.
Yeah, given the journalistic landscape now, it's like you think that you're not allowed to swear, or you're not. And I like that you would call someone investigating a story a clout chaser. I know that's what we call Ronan Farrow all the time. You're like, you clout chaser. You're just trying to be cool, like Harvey Weinstein. I think he's trying to shed some light on something. Yeah, it's kind of harmful. So I don't think that's a clout chaser.
No, there's no clout to be chased here. God, just cringe.
No, so much cringe. Well, and aside from your cease and desist, have you had any? So you have not. Have you been to Marietta since they've started the cult, or no?
Yes,
you have.
Yeah, since after the cease and desist, I was in Marietta for 6 days or something like that back in the end of April.
Okay.
So how was it? What's the vibe there? Do people, or is it like openly discussed?
Oh yeah, I mean everywhere. You go to the gas station, and we were at the gas station one time at like 1 o'clock in the morning. And I was really stoned, and there was a police officer in there, and I was like, "Hey, you hear about this cult?" And this police officer was like, "Oh yeah, I heard they're running around naked, blah blah." And just like there wasn't a single person that would have been shocked to hear about this because everybody was talking about it.
Wow. And I noticed on their Facebook page, they had that looked like maybe it was like a Crime Watch, Neighborhood Watch Facebook page. There's at least one, maybe two citizens that are like deeply concerned about it and seem to be like frequently posting. And then it's interesting to see the mix of citizen comments, at least back in April. And I was just wondering if you've seen kind of an evolution, a shift in people's attitudes in the town. Like you said, you talked to some folks that live there. If at first it was like, oh, kind of leave them alone. And now it's like, wait, they're doing what now? And also, who's mixing my mashed potatoes and gravy? Like, there's only one restaurant in this
Old Cafe, Old Town Cafe. Yeah.
So, have you kind of seen like the citizens shifting more anti-cult?
Yes, I mean, the sentiment is generally anti-cult. If you watch any of the material that I put out, or if you the more information that comes out about it too, like it's hard to support some of the stuff that Linda does. She still gets business at the cafe. People are still eating there, but it's like, again, it's the only restaurant like that people have been going there after church forever.
Yeah.
It's a place where a lot of people meet and just have discussions, and it's it's sort of like if you had one bar, people would go there, and
because it's mostly a older community that lives there, I assume,
in rural.
Yeah,
it's generally a little older. Yeah, there's definitely some blue hairs at the cafe, but it's I would have to say though that like the people in town were like remarkably friendly. Like everybody was welcoming to me. Like people had like cheese plates and stuff when we arrived.
We were thinking about, because we're just 2 hours away, so we were like, next week we want to get up and like drive there and just the day, maybe go to the cafe and walk around,
Browse.
So it's worth it, I guess, and people will talk to you?
I think so.
Okay, cool.
Yeah,
I think so. I think it's pretty easy to get like the person on the street opinion because everybody knows about it and everybody has, you know, their feelings about there's different things that resonate with different people. I mean, a lot of people don't like that Linda's fiance is in prison for what he's in prison for.
Yeah.
Going to be one of my other questions of like, what is the
everybody
sentiment is bad.
I guess everybody talks. Yeah.
Yeah.
And people are just generally like, people are just friendly. People are way more friendly down there than I experience in Minnesota, where
everybody will just talk to you.
Sort of you get cold shoulder a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah. Especially,
I have seen this.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. I keep stepping. I keep stepping over you, and I know you can't do that on Zoom because it screws up the audio. But I was going to say, like, I've seen something like this happen before because it happened with the body last year, where some people, like in this town in Washington that they went to, like nobody knew what they were up to. Nobody knew who their neighbors were. And then like these people got arrested. I found out about it. And once I got the tape of what this guy was saying when he was arrested, I put it on the internet and it like went viral right away. And all of a sudden, like every single person in town knew what was going on. It was just all over Facebook. This is the most, you know, like in Marietta, people will be talking about this on porch swings and 60 years.
That's what I'm trying to
remember. That cult lady, the alien.
Do they like leave wherever they live and go mingle about town and stuff? Did you see any like active members?
I saw, I mean, they hang out at the cafe. There was a guy I saw at the cafe a couple times. But one of the big mysteries is that there's a bunch of stories now about how these people who knew this cult was going on before, basically there was this woman, Tracy, who found out about the cafe, and it kind of blew up there. But the reality is, like, I've never been able to talk to anybody who recognizes the central figures in this story. Like there's this woman, Elvira, who's sort of number 2 in command, and she's from Australia. She has an Australian accent. And if you were an Australian in Marietta, people would notice you immediately.
Yeah. But people in the town haven't seen her?
Well, they've seen her now. Now, like, well, they have like a more public face. But before the cafe opened, which was in April, or in March, but I can't remember. I think it was the very end of March is when they got it. But they went from being like, you know, just hidden to having this public persona just at like the worst time possible.
Yeah. And hopefully you're, like you said, any light that can get shown on them, whether through social media, online, digital media, or traditional. I think it will take, like you said, for some people in that town who maybe aren't on TikTok, maybe aren't on Facebook, and get their news from NBC DFW, like our local affiliate, that it's going to take stories on that type of thing and looping in maybe younger relatives going to town like, y'all heard about this? What's going on? And just everybody in town understanding the gravity of what's happening. Because you don't want to necessarily go, oh, somebody came in and bought the cafe, we hate them immediately. It's like, well, why did you buy it? What's the purpose? And it's to fund this thing that we fundamentally don't agree with, or, you know, to assist this man who's in jail for heinous crimes against children. We don't want to support that, or we have no choice because we have no other restaurant. It's hard.
Yeah.
And well, I mean, they haven't like nothing crazy has happened at the cafe. Like Linda hasn't shown up and started screaming at anybody or anything like that. Like
I think that's
they've
smart.
been on their best behavior.
Yeah, you keep running it.
Does she go around the town, or is she not really ever seen?
No, I've talked to 2 people who've seen her at the cafe during off hours, but she is not like a public presence there at all.
She's holed up. Do they live? Can you see like in the town, drive by where they live? Are they all in one little commune area?
Yeah, the compound is incredible. That's, I mean, if you're going to go to Marietta, you at least got to drive by.
Oh yeah,
certainly,
for sure.
because it's gorgeous. I mean, it
Oh,
was
wow.
probably the nicest property I saw in that town. I mean, it's on this little I assume it's a man-made pond. They have this enormous cross in the middle of this field there that's like super creepy. It's like,
Wow.
hey, am I at the right place? Is this the cult place? Oh, yeah. Okay,
Oh,
it is.
right there.
Yeah. Okay. You can't miss it.
Well,
There's a giant cross in the yard.
And do you, as far as the Profundity Yours belief system, does Jesus factor into that? Because, or is the cross there to say, hey, probably Christian neighbors, we're in Texas. Please don't think we're a cult. We're like you, despite the fact that a lot of the discussions are star language or light language and star seeds and all that stuff. Is it just like a kind of a amalgamation of a bunch of religions and they stuck the cross up?
It is. I mean, it's a New Age religion, and New Age religion is famous for borrowing other concepts from other religions and being like, see, like this is, it's very, everything is okay and
familiar,
accepting or whatever. But there's a really weird relationship with Christianity and profundity. I mean, Linda I was just going through a video before we got on the phone here, and in that video, she's borrowing these like Christian concepts, but she won't say the name Jesus. Like, okay, the two things that are important here, like you can't say Jesus in front of her. It's Yahshua or Yeshua. And like Linda was Jesus is the thing.
That's right.
Is that Linda in a past life recalls being crucified as Jesus.
So the cross
Jesus
just makes her feel like home.
Yeah. And whenever she finds something, I mean, the cult has some piece of art in the cafe now that's like something, it's the word cult, like where I forgot what, like an acronym or like it's like Christian something, unity,
leadership.
So they made it into an acrostic
anagram.
Poem.
Yeah.
They made an acrostic poem of the word cult, leaning in, which that would, to me, because my lawyer brain's always like, is it defamation to call someone a cult? In fact, in Texas, it's not, because the courts cannot adjudicate what a religion is. And so if I say this is a cult, this isn't a religion to me, they can't sue me and say, yes, we are. It would require the church, not the church, the state, the judge to say, yes, this is a religion. No, it is not. So it just is a non-starter in Texas. But the fact that they've leaned in, I think it's very cult. They put it on the fucking wall in the cafe. So I think we're all safe. I think we're all safe here.
Yeah. God, I can't remember what the word. It's not Anna.
We'll take an acrostic poem where it's like each letter.
Yes.
Yeah. It's
yes.
Poem.
Okay.
Yeah, we'll take a photo for you when we visit. And
they have a photo on. I mean, I thought that was hilarious. But Linda, I mean, I guess like now they've sort of leaned into like, hey, we're just like good Christian folks, and it's like, hey,
no,
are
you're
you
not
kidding me? Like,
there's videos,
there's all this, there's so much evidence, and whenever it's convenient, Linda will borrow from Christianity whenever it suits her. But it's not like if you go through the archive, you'll see these little instances of that, but that's not what Profundity is about. Like, it's not about Christianity. It's never really been about Christianity unless it was convenient.
And convenient for the message. Do you think that the goal, as far as like the funnel from somebody watching a Profundity Yours video online to moving to the ranch, what do you think like the funnel is? Is she getting people who are searching? We covered Teal Swan, for instance, and a lot of that was searching for like the meaning of life, and like, or Bettino Massaro, who is, people are searching to level up or whatever. What do you think is the funnel that people end up watching these videos from Linda? And then what proposition, I guess, value proposition does she have, aside from the world's going to end on March 23rd, 2023. Oopsie, it didn't.
I mean, Linda has a type. The average Profundity person is either somebody who sort of grew up searching or was in a cult-like environment, or somebody with trauma. That's the big one, and that's the really bad one, is that she finds people who've gone through traumatic experiences or are like currently going through trauma. And the whole thing of Profundity Yours is like, hey, I'm this person who went through all this trauma and I'm fine. Like, if you take all the aliens and stuff out of it, that's like, hey, I had this terrible childhood and this horrible experience 15 years ago or whatever, 12 years ago, that just totally should have broken me, but I'm not broken. I actually transcended it. And I don't even like memories aren't that bad. Like my rape was the most beautiful moment of my life or whatever she says. Like, I don't know if I put that out yet.
I was going to ask you, because that was in the footage. She spoke about having this incident in 2014. That was, I mean, she described it as a sexual assault, a rape, and then saying like, oh, from that I was reborn. And I thought that was an interesting framework. And do you think that was kind of the starting moment of this, of like processing a horrible event that happened to her? And I think we always say we can hold two truths at the same time, of like that's a horrible thing to happen to anybody, but then it's a horrible thing to happen to anybody. But then when you take your dealing with trauma and then start harming others, I think that's when our sympathy can stop, right? But is that kind of the beginning moment?
Well, and she will tell like rape survivors that like, why did you rape yourself? Like really disgusting stuff like that.
Yeah.
I think that experience sort of like was the final nail in the coffin. Like it's not like Linda was things were going great before this.
Yeah.
But she's just somebody. I mean, there's like a hurt people element to this.
Time. Yeah.
Where she didn't really survive her abuse.
Yeah.
She's a tragic figure. She like Linda, she does terrible things, and she's got all these hostages, and she feeds off people's trauma. She abuses them through their trauma. But this is not something that just came out of nowhere. And there's a reason why like these types are attracted to Linda, and why people are willing to sort of like disconnect from the really crazy stuff that she talks about, because it's like, well, there's this amazing thing that she does.
This part helps me, so I can ignore that she says she decides the fate of the world every day when she wakes up and climbs in a spaceship,
which is just like any abuser.
Yeah.
That, the whole honeymoon phase, you're cling to those moments where it's really good, and then it cycles back through. But so, yeah, if you're an abused, vulnerable person who is comfortable in that environment, sadly, then you would find comfort in a person like Linda.
Right.
And I would say, child abuse and domestic violence are the two best analogs, really, where you see kind of like these patterns that just like repeat. And sometimes like most people that are abused do not become abusers, but there's a huge percentage of them, an abnormal percentage of them do.
Yeah. Then it's not addressed, and we have a huge, on a wider scale, a public policy issue of like, we need to address mental health concerns, and we need to address responses to trauma early on, because you do see that leads to deviant behavior, whether it's just straight up crime or starting an entire cult and abusing people on a larger scale.
Well, I wonder too. I mean, something that there's not like there isn't scientific research or psychological research on to any degree that I've seen that I could cite. This is I don't know how you'd put these pieces together, but from studying cults and studying a lot of them, I've never once heard the story of the abuser who gets that far, who has like a second act in life. Like Linda's never going to be like, oh my God, I can't believe I was a cult leader. Like now I'm going to fight against this. I've never heard a story like that. Like there becomes a point, and McNeely, her fiance, is in the same boat. There comes a point where like you go so far in, and he was also abused, that like there is no like coming back. Like the story will always be fictional. You'll never get it you're never going to have, even if she was in prison, like you'd never get Linda to confess like, yes, I did this terrible thing. She'd never say that. Like,
yeah, it's like a protective facade almost of like, you're never going to talk to the real person because they've, as a trauma response, put something up so much. It's like a whole other personality. But it's interesting you brought up McNeely. Do you know the background on how they initially met, how they connected? I've seen the appellate filings where she's listed as his girlfriend. She came and testified for him and all that. Just kind of briefly their history and what role he may be currently playing. Is she still in contact with him?
Well, it's tough because like the story is extremely unreliable because it comes from Linda.
Okay.
And they definitely originally, like, his ex-wife told me she thought they linked up sometime in like 2015 or 2016, but then like I've got a photo of them together, I think in 2013, and I believe my best estimation is that they met in 2012. I mean, they're from like the places in Montana they're from are like 2 hours apart. Somehow they linked together. It was probably through a dating app.
Mm-hmm.
And that's how they got connected a long time ago.
Okay.
And I'm not like totally certain on that, but I have heard that it was an app from a survivor.
Okay.
And my best guess, like the timeline, that the first picture of them is in 2013.
And
so
then he was arrested sort of for this scheme of child abuse that he pled guilty to eventually. And then she stuck by him, it sounds like, through all of that.
Yeah, she's been pretty loyal. I mean, this is what's so weird about it, is that it's really hard for like a psychopath to love someone.
Mm-hmm.
But in Lindaland, like, this guy is the greatest. And she always loved it. She was always just infatuated with this guy. He's definitely not capable of loving anything or anyone. He's
can do that.
he's a total purebred psychopath.
Oh yeah. No, I was trying to recall what the charges were exactly that he was charged with.
I want to see a picture of him too.
Oh yeah, I can pull it
But
up.
at the same time, like we were saying, that's why, you know, people can be susceptible to joining cults. If she grew up abused, you know, she's again like sadly comfortable in that type of relationship where you're being abused.
Yeah,
because I'm assuming she 100% abused her as well.
Yeah,
I mean that's something that you find is like this is a place like this world where people like want to like need to control people.
Mhm.
It's like that's the comfortable place to them. Like that's where they feel safe, because when they were, you know, children, there was they had no control over anything, and everything was scary and chaos. These people came from really scary environments, and like the only way to feel safe is in these systems.
Yeah.
Well, it was for
sure.
distribution of child sexual abuse material. So I really don't know how she thinks that he's the greatest person in the world, given that's
and it's worse. It's worse than it sounds too. Like, I mean, the chats that he was having online kind of came out during his appeal process.
Yeah.
And he was bragging about like assaulting very, very, very young children. I mean, he talked about like an infant. His search terms that they brought up when he was doing his appeal, the word tiny comes up over and over again, because in his searches there were all these files that had the word tiny in them. And so the prosecutor was making that point when he was like, hey, we're not going to reduce this guy's sentence. His appeal is bogus.
No.
And this is what this guy was doing, and what he was talking about, and why he needs to be segregated from, you know, the
rest of the
society,
the population. Yeah.
Did she just kind of not acknowledge it, or, you know, like it's just like ignorance is bliss type of thing?
I've only heard her directly acknowledge that he is in prison on one occasion. And that was like a fairly new find, like sometime in the past, I don't know, 3 weeks ish.
Yeah. The thing with her, though, I mean,
but it's mostly something. I guess she does it indirectly, though. She's like, we need to forgive. Like, we're all pedophiles and rapists, really, because we were in past lives. Like, so she indirectly talks about McNeely.
Yeah.
There's no other reason she would say this stuff. You know,
his current release date's scheduled for 2029, if I'm not mistaken.
I believe so. Yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, you don't really get good behavior in federal prison. He's in Seagaville, by the way, not very far from our houses. That's also where I think the Duggar boy is at as well. I say boy, he's a disgusting adult man, but the son of the Duggar family, also a sex predator of children. But it's interesting that she's almost planting the seeds of telling people like, oh, well, we can forgive, right? And that was, I saw in the Crime Watch group of Marietta, people's concerns when they initially said, hey, this cult bought this restaurant. Some people said, oh, well, you can't necessarily call them a cult. It's just a religion. And the poster or other citizens are like, no, you need to understand that this woman has gone to bat for him. And that's the other thing. She may not mention him in her videos, but we know from filed federal appellate actions that she's gone to bat for him. She's shown up and testified for him and is not distanced herself publicly or said anything about it. So it's interesting that especially in a more conservative groups, there's this push against like, oh, people are trying to groom children. There's these children groomers. And it's like, you have got at least tangentially related, a groomer adjacent person, or if she's saying things like that, that also sounds like forgiveness of groomer and abusive behavior.
Normalization.
And like, that's interesting that given that is such a hot talking point right now in Texas, especially in a bad faith way has been directed to members of the LGBTQ community, when in reality, you have this huge cross in this small town and the people beneath that cross are saying, oh, well, it's okay to do that because, we've all done it. Anyway, he's going to come live here in a few years.
Yeah, I mean, he is dangerous, and there's a reason to be afraid of him, and you cannot apologize for him. I guess she has mentioned, like, she's grazed the subject on the internet before. I've only heard her like say it out loud. The one time that she didn't say what he was in prison for.
Yeah.
And there might be more out there. I mean, I'm still like going through this archive is unbelievably difficult. I'm using AI to comb through all these videos to figure out what's being said.
How many hours
and to build a library?
Yeah, how many hours of footage would you say you have?
About 1,000.
Gosh.
Wow.
And you're just combing through it to try to find the pertinent parts.
Yeah, so imagine if you were doing it like 8 or 9 hours at a time. Like it would take forever,
Yeah.
Like Monday through Friday. Excuse me. Like it would be impossible to have the library where it is. Like everything really changed about 2-3 weeks ago when I was working on my article, because I am going to put out an article about this, and I was adding some files and I realized like, oh, holy crap, the this library is now like 70% full, and I'm going to keep getting it like fuller. And I use a couple different like software, just AI transcription, AI image transcription, to put the pieces together. But yeah, it just goes on and on forever. Like the video I'm editing right now is 4 hours, 29 minutes, and 58 seconds long.
Wow.
So just imagine video? That's one video
of them just streaming and talking about, of her streaming and talking about whatever.
Yeah, the
I
thing
would
that
have
Linda
30 rooted canals before I watched 4 hours of Linda. And that's why when we were initially speaking, I was like, God bless you for doing that, and thank God for AI, because I'm sure not watching that many hours.
No.
That's a lot.
No, I mean, when this first started coming together, and I was like taking these videos, like I think I took like 6 videos, watched them all, and I was just going through like shorter videos, and it took 9 days or something to cut out the pieces to make the first like batch of TikToks.
Wow.
And while I was doing it, I was like, oh, I'm going to lose my mind. Like this is making me insane.
Yeah.
And it will, like it's also like hypnotic. Like if you watch the because she uses all this like circular speech, that you'll get lost in it and just kind of forget what you're doing. That happens to me a lot. Like if the way I do it now is I've got the text on one side and the video on the other, and I read the text, I cut the video out without even watching it. And then when that's over, I will take all those clips, watch them as one, and kind of think like what sticks out. And then I'll just make a transcript of that, do the the entire process over again.
Yeah.
So it gets smaller
each time.
But it's a having like a library of this stuff, because I mean that's where the biggest information comes from.
Yeah.
And I mean is like what Linda has to say for herself. Like that's she's not super reliable, but Linda also like is not like, I wouldn't go as far as to say she's like completely dishonest. Like there's moments of honesty in these videos, and you can kind of see, I don't know if you guys saw the TikTok I put out yesterday, but it starts with Linda being like, I don't relate to people. The hardest thing for me is to have human relationships. And it's like,
that's
yes,
probably
like
real.
that's like,
that's
right. You.
Yeah.
Right. It's real. And it's, I mean, that hard drive you have sounds like it's cursed, but it's also like a trove, like you said, because I think when you have somebody that wants to control a narrative surrounding themselves or control a mythos around themselves, to say, oh, well, we're a really good, sweet, like Christian organization that, and if they think that they've scrubbed it, it's like screenshots and recordings are forever. So I think it's extremely valuable that you have that. And that's the service that you're doing. And me as a lawyer, I'm always like, I need all it's like to me, when I see a situation like this, it feels like a law school exam, and I have like issue spotting, and I'm like, here's where an agency can come in. Here's where an agency can come in. Somebody needs to call these people. Somebody needs to call them. So in seeing this as it progresses, and you're seeing that you said getting darker, or maybe that they're buying more area of the town. Have you heard of any agencies getting involved, or is that just it's kind of too early to tell? There's not enough information about them.
I think it's a little early, but not because there's enough information about them. There's a lot of information out there, and there's a lot of information from like the Secretary of State's website. Like we know what the business are. We know that Linda owns like all this stuff, and it doesn't make sense that she has all this money.
Yeah, that's the thing, is like, you got to tell somebody.
You don't have a job. Where are you getting your income?
And you have to tell the IRS, because I think it's section 162, or it might be 161 of the Internal Revenue Code. They say it's all funds from whatever source derived. They don't care what you call it. If you call it a donation or whatever, they want you to pay taxes and they want you to report it. And I think that's where her ass should be tight if she's at all nervous about this.
Get caught.
Yeah, is that when you see,
like if you get a big gift from a Canadian, you got to pay taxes on it.
Oh yeah, like, I mean, and guess what? Anything over $10,000 is getting reported to FinCEN, which is the criminal investigation unit of the IRS. And that's why, the banks have that. If it's a transaction over 10,000, if it's more than $10,000 of cash, they have this threshold. And I imagine a cafe or a ranch or a feed store costs more than $10,000. So I'm like, you ding dong, you're getting flagged left, right, and center. So, and the thing about the FBI and the IRS, you do not know that they're investigating you until there are cold handcuffs around your wrists. And so they will, I think the more you get out there, and then if survivors or people whose family members are involved, you can make an anonymous report to the IRS and go, hey, listen, this is what I know. Here's their website. Here's this. I have a good faith belief that there's a lot of money here that's being called a donation online, and I have no evidence that this is a church. There's nothing stopping a family member or somebody with actual knowledge from doing that. And I think that's going to be what kind of kicks it to where
if enough people do that and they're like, oh, we need to
we should be paying attention to this. Yeah, certainly. And also, like you said one time, I'm pretty sure that the FBI is on TikTok. Like they and it may not be an agent sitting there watching every
Somebody
TikTok.
That works for the FBI.
They probably also have AI. They have stuff that's like listed in for things like this too. So I don't know. Hopefully the light that you shed on it will help just at least get people that are under that thumb and are there because they're vulnerable, get them out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that's what it's. I mean, I think that the more people talk about this stuff, and Linda's a fascinating character, and I really do think that she. I mean, it would be in everybody's best interest, and especially the people who are on the compound or planning on going to the compound, if this thing just wasn't available, it wasn't an option anymore.
Yeah.
Because it's this cycle of abuse. It's people, everybody gets separated from their families. Bad stuff is happening so routinely.
Yeah.
But it's one of these things. Like there's also like they've been kind of smart in a lot of ways at covering their tracks. And if there wasn't like somebody paying attention all these years like this, it would already be over.
Mm-hmm. And you're right. I think it would get much, much worse, but with that publicity and press and people are looking into it, maybe that will be the thing that shuts it down.
Mm-hmm.
Shuts it down. Well, thank you for talking with us today.
Do you have any tips for when we go down there next week? Any places to go, or just in general suggestions?
I mean, I don't know. Like, I guess I would keep a low enough profile that you can go into the restaurant without being noticed, because that was something that I could not do.
Yeah.
And I hear the food is really great.
Oh, nice. Good to know. Well, we'll turn up. Christy's from Fort Worth and I'm from Mesquite. We're from pretty country places. We may turn up our accents a little bit and be like, "Hi, y'all. What are the biscuits?"
I would recommend,
help us with the biscuits. But yeah, we definitely appreciate it. So, what is your upcoming? You said you had an article coming out. You have a documentary coming out. What can people look for to get more information on this in-depth reporting that you've been doing?
Yeah, I guess so I had a video that was supposed to come out on the 4th of July. My article is in delayed. Like I'm slow with a lot of this stuff.
No, you got more stuff to add. You have 1,000 hours to go through.
But yeah, I was supposed to put out like this documentary, this short documentary on the 4th of July called what I'm trying to think, because I've had a few. I should know how to plug myself. Okay, so I have this video coming out called "The Company You Keep."
Okay, and
that was going to come out on the 4th of July, and then I found the video that I'm the 4.5 hour video that I'm editing right now. I scanned it and was like, holy shit, there is some stuff in here that needs to be included in there. And then just 2 days ago, I found like the person who is just my last source, like the little source that puts the puzzle together.
Nice.
And so that interview is going to be on Tuesday, and I'm going to try to sprint and put the whole thing together for next Friday. I don't know when this comes out.
So this will probably air towards the end of July. So it hopefully will be out by the time.
Yeah. I'm hoping that by the time listeners hear this, they can see the documentary.
But no matter what, they can go and find you on TikTok at Syran Warner, right? On TikTok.
Yes, and because of this delay, I wasn't going to put out TikToks until this came out, but now I've decided like there's too much important information in here that now I'm just like sitting on.
Yeah.
So I'm not going to do that. Like I'm going to be putting out the pieces that I feel people really should know on TikTok as they sort of come in.
Okay.
Too.
Well, fantastic. Well, we'll keep an eye on there and we'll keep in touch with you. And if anybody in Marietta is listening and wants us to look into stuff, email Syran and email us. I think we're all going to try to collaborate and just get as much information and as many eyeballs as possible on it, because you don't get to come down to our state and start a fucking cult. You just don't. So
gotta take it somewhere else.
Yeah, take it somewhere else.
Take over the only cafe in town.
No,
that's just rude.
Do somebody dirty and take their biscuits away. You can't do that, man. That's not cool. But we thank you very much for chatting with us today.
Thanks so much.
No, thank you so much for having me on, and thank you for having this conversation. Like it's important that we talk about these groups, because they are just gonna do all the dirty stuff they do in the dark is just going to continue until people have these conversations.
And I think until people know, I can speak up, and if you know that there's a child or a person over 65 or a person who's, has doesn't have the mental capacity to help themselves, you call Adult Protective Services, Child Protective Services. We are a mandatory reporting state. So people that are in and around there that have actual knowledge of that, it's just like the more we call, I think, and the more we, like you said, get the information out there that this could be going on there.
Make it so they can't ignore them anymore.
Yeah, you can't ignore it or whatever. So, but we really appreciate you taking the time, and we'll stay in touch.
Yeah, thank you.
All right, thank you.